All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, there was a possibility that the New York Giants would make a move prior to today's trade deadline in the National Football League in order to bolster their wide receiving cores. But instead, Giants general manager Joe Schoen decided to hold onto his draft picks and not make a move. Now, you look at the Giants offense, and it's at both ends of the spectrum. The Giants are one of the top rushing teams in the NFL. Right now, they're currently fourth, in rushing yards, but their passing attack, if you want to call it that, they're just 30th in the league, and that's really not going to get it done long term for this year. But don't get me wrong, I am sure that Joe Shane and his staff are aware of this, but at the end of the day, he was not going to part with draft picks for players such as Chase Claypool, who got traded by the Steelers to the Bears. And in the case of Claypool, his contract is up after the 2023 season. Or a guy like Brandon Cooks, whom the Houston Texans were looking for a second round pick, and then you also had to take on Cook's contract as well. So you have a Giants team that was hamstrung financially from the word go when Joe Shane took over back in January, because it's a scenario where, Dave Gettleman, the previous general manager of the Giants, left him a mess as the Giants are in salary cap purgatory. And Shane has been hard at work trying to clean all of that up. And I'm sure he's not going to do all of that work to just make one impulse move right now. I think, in my opinion, Joe Shane is looking at the long term future and the health and stability of this franchise from a cap as well as a draft scenario. Um, TFX 121, what's going on? How you doing? Hey, 300. Do you think they're just going to rebuild a whole new team under Shane slash Dayball and get rid of everything that Gettleman left? Not necessarily. In my opinion, I feel like, yeah, the Giants are 6-2 right now. I don't see a scenario this year where they don't finish with a winning record and make the playoffs because of the start that they've had. But at the end of the day, still no disrespect to them and what they've done. They've overachieved. Now, with that said, obviously there's going to be some Gettleman holdovers for this team in the long term. And the bottom line is, this to me, I think this year is a year of transition for the Giants, and it's also a feeling out process as far as Shane and Dayball looking to see what guys can stick around. Because again, they've already parted with guys prior to the season began that they just weren't going to fit their systems offensively or defensively, as well as their financials. I mean, James Bradbury was a phenomenal corner during his brief tenure with the Giants, but he didn't fit into the scheme that new defensive coordinator Wink Martindale is running. Also, his cap hit. So that's something where the Giants had to look at. Blake Martinez got cut. He couldn't stay healthy. And to me, I really don't think he was a fit for that defensive system as well. And these are two guys that I just mentioned that Dave Gettleman brought in. So to your point, I think there are going to be some holdovers because we're seeing guys that do fit into Dayball's system, but at the end of the day, it's going to be it's all about this year. To me, is all about transition and also giving the Giants financial flexibility going forward. One of the reasons why Joe Shane was a fast riser as far as potential general manager candidates in the NFL was due to the fact that he was a big cap guy for the Buffalo Bills as the assistant general manager there. He worked a lot behind the scenes to get that righted. And of course, at the end of the day, you always want to try to put yourself in a position where you have salary cap flexibility. Not only that, you want to do your due diligence and your homework and your scouting on the players that you're bringing in via the draft. And you also want to build depth. And if you look at the Buffalo Bills, they have financial cap, salary cap flexibility. They have depth, and also they have talent, and that's why there are people out there to feel that the Bills have what it takes to win the Super Bowl this year. The Giants, they're working on all of those aspects. They're not there yet. They're a work in progress, but we can clearly see and quickly see the impact that Joe Shane is having on this organization. CJ LaChapelle, how are you doing, my good friend? I know you're taking a break from the World Series. It's really not much of a game right now. So hopefully, talking a little NFL will definitely get your minds off of that. When will you do another live video about MLB? In the coming days. I'm probably going to talk about something once the World Series is done. I see that the Gold Gloves were being handed out tonight. There's definitely going to be something to talk about there. So with that said, I'll probably be doing something over the weekend at some point. So definitely keep an eye out, and I'm sure that you have plenty to talk about the current proceedings going on with the Astros and the Braves. Max Fried and Dansby from the Braves won. I did not know that. Thanks for the update. I mean, I did see that Mookie Betts, I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, for the Dodgers did get a Gold Glove. I wasn't sure exactly everybody that got a Gold Glove. I know that Nolan Arenado from St. Louis got one as well. So, but yeah, definitely want to talk about some stuff over the weekend in regards to MLB, and also there's going to be some stuff to keep an eye on heading into, now that we're officially into November, because before you know it, the winter meetings will be here. But nonetheless, with the New York Football Giants, of course, got to be specific about that, because once upon a time, the baseball Giants played in New York as well. Joe Shane is just thinking, long term as far as what he's going to do as a general manager to try to get the ship righted for Big Blue. And of course, there's going to be people that are going to be on both sides of the fence as far as whether or not it was the right move or the wrong move for the Giants to stand pat at the trade deadline today, especially at wide receiver, being that they just traded Kadarius Tony to Kansas City last week. I think, to me, and I'm not in that building, I think collectively the hope is that Kenny Galladay can come back and have some type of an impact in this passing game. We'll have to wait and see. But the bottom line is, the Giants' offense is really hamstrung by their lack of threat from the passing game. Short term, that's a problem, but I think long term, the Giants definitely go out there and fix it. They drafted Wandale Robinson early in this year's draft. Not saying that he's going to be the second coming of Jerry Rice, but at the same time, nonetheless, it's a scenario where they want to put it together piece by piece and brick by brick to try to get this thing going. But I will say this for the Giants of this year is that it's a scenario where they have the ability to win in the regular season, but what you can't do in the postseason always shows up. And the Giants' lack of passing attack, I guarantee you, will be a hindrance at some point to them this season. TFX, Tony was awesome, but there must have been something wrong behind the scenes. Well, plain and simple, Tony was not drafted by this regime, Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. He was a Gettleman guy, and let's not forget that was a quirky draft for the Giants last year. They did get the extra pick, which helped them out this year, but they traded back with the Bears last year and they took Tony. Tony had a lot of question marks, a lot of red flags coming out of Florida, and at the end of the day, you know, probably something did happen behind the scenes, because now you're hearing about it. He said he was healthy. The Giants said no. And in Kansas City, even now, is saying, well, you know what, we're going to pump the brakes on putting him out there right now. But I think when he gets out there, he'll definitely have an impact. The talent is there. Like I said, when the Giants did make the move, I think it was a win-win trade for both teams. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, they trade a guy that they weren't attached at the hip with. And then on top of that, Kansas City gets another impact player. And if you're a wide receiver and you can't get busy when Patrick Mahomes is throwing you the football and Andy Reid is the head coach, well, then that's on you. But I think it definitely will work out nonetheless for Kadarius Tony in Kansas City. So for me, it's one of those where, again, Shane is building from within. And excuse me, For a lot of guys, even the gentleman holdovers, this has been an interview process for them this year. And some guys are holding up their end of the bargain, and some guys are not. Daniel Jones has shown a lot of progression. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is running for a contract. CJ, as always, it was a pleasure. Have a good night, and I'll definitely, like I said, definitely expect to be talking some MLB over the weekend. So, but as always, man, I appreciate the support in the comments, man. Have a good one. So, it's one of those where guys are trying to audition to try to see what they can get long term for Big Blue with this organization. And some guys are living up to the building, some guys aren't. And you know what? That's the nature of the beast. But at the end of the day, I think Joe Shane is thinking long term. There's going to be some naysayers about what he did now. There's going to be some supporters about what he did today and what he's done so far. But at the end of the day, I think collectively, the Giant fan base and 2, maybe 3 years, will definitely be happy overall with what Shane is doing. I mean, we're seeing an impact already because I really don't think there were too many Giant fans out there that expected this team to be 6-2 at this point of the season. Even the most optimistic fan, especially with where this team and this organization have been in recent years. But nonetheless, Joe Shane stuck to his guns. He wasn't going to mortgage the future just for a rental at receiver per se. He still has those picks. He has additional picks from the Tony trade, and then on top of that, now you have some cap flexibility going into next year as well. You have a feeling this is a feeling out process to see what this team can and cannot do this year. And I think Shane has his team moving in the right direction. They're, to me, so far, they're ahead of schedule here in year number one, but he is definitely looking long term. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. If you like what you saw and heard tonight, please feel free to hit that like button as well as a notification so you can get alerts when more of these podcasts are going up. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care. Thanks to TFX as well as CJ for chiming in with the comments. As always, it is much appreciated. Until next time, folks, this is William Martin signing off, saying take care, be well, and thanks for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube.